I'm getting from this is there is a diversity of experiences in terms of accomplishment and success. Everybody, people are traveling different roads, but determination is there, hard work is there, education is there, either early or later, and all that. So Anita Lewis, Chief Development Officer of the Economic Opportunity Program, thank you for sharing this information. I really think this is a Black history alive tonight because we're learning about history and education and people's journeys and what they've experienced. And it's before Black History Month. So I really appreciate this. And I also want to appreciate Next Star Television, which is the parent company of WETM NBC in Elmira. I want to thank Next Star for allowing this show 30 times. Now, there's probably people up there saying 30 times political pundit night. Well, Dr. Coleman, that's 30 times too many. Well, I really appreciate the fact this is on the air. It's cybercasting with something to say. And tonight we're having Black Success in America and the Twin Tiers. Black History Month begins on Wednesday of next week, which of course is February the 1st. So, Anita, thank you for your comments. By the way, you're all listening intently to what others are saying, and we'll have a discussion amongst us in not a very long time from now. So, thank you so much. Willie Owens is a community activist. Willie Owens is a member of the New York State Democratic Committee. Willie Owens is a Jefferson Award winner. And Willie Owens, if there's trouble in a neighborhood in Elmira, who's going to show up and try to deal with the problem, solve the problem, address the trouble? It's Willie Owens. So Willie Owens, Jefferson Award winner, to mention that again. Welcome to Political Pundit Night, Black Success in America and the Twin Tiers. Willie, your story.
Thanks for sharing. Thanks for having me. First and foremost, everybody on this panel plays a role in our community to make it better in some way, form, or fashion. From Anita to Jerome to Austria to everybody in this panel. My success, that's a good question. What is success? I think success is the individual, what you deem success is. I left Elmira when I was 5. And I moved to Bridgeport, Connecticut, 203. There I got into the streets. They sent me back to Elmira because I was doing bad things in Connecticut. End up going to school here, graduating, finding myself doing crime, selling drugs. Ended up doing 16 and a half years in prison. Came home and met with a few people here. I think I met with Georgia, Anita. I met with Anita all the time, basically. I was like, stayed in her office. And the key to that education is so important. I decided to go to school to get my associate's degree at Corning College. Then me and my partner, Troy, created a program with Peace. And then through school, I ended up working for the state. I worked for the state for 9 years. I think it was very hard to transition from that type of environment to where I'm at now. I think success, I always say, it's an individual, what you want to do with yourself, because a person who has 8 and 10 years get a good meal, that's success to him for that time. I had a lot of people who I looked up to and admired from both sides of the spectrum, you know what I mean? The business aspect and just being a professional aspect. I have a PhD from the streets, and I have associates in school, and I'm working on my bachelor's degree. I surround myself with positive people. I think that's so important because the lifestyle I was living is an addiction, the hustling addiction. You have to change that hustle to a different hustle. I look at my job as a hustle because it brings money to my family. I was blessed to have a beautiful wife. I have 3 kids, 2 stepkids and 1 son. I have 4 grandkids, and I'm only 31. But I think All right. I think it's very important to understand now. I think Anita brought it up. I think I don't want to get into the racism. I haven't experienced racism until I came to Elmira when I was 12, because we didn't deal with racism. It was 48% Puerto Rican, 48% Black. So I never had interacted with other races. I think right now we haven't made that much movement from the past. It's a different type of mental slavery. I think education is definitely a key component into transitioning to a better future for our youth and adults as well. And I think as long as we have people trailblazing in the position we're in now, I think we can make a difference. And everybody play their role for all the wisdom that you people have on this panel. I think we can do a lot in our community. And we have done a lot. We have a lot more to go. And as I'm hearing people talking about their kids. Your kids is going to be just like you. Great people. We just have to strive and keep them focused and then carrying off tradition and doing the right thing. Because I think a lot of things affecting our youth today, the music, the culture, the laws, played a role in not bettering our children. So I think we have to be more in the streets when the streets to be relevant. We have to be seen more to make a difference in our community. And our voices have to be heard. Pastor Strickland, many titles you have. She said she's heard Martin Luther King say he had a dream. I was actually, a couple weeks ago, I was listening to him, and he was saying about he's having a dream. He said he had another speech he wished he would have said, because the dream what he looked at isn't a dream what it is. If he knew when he got to the mountaintop how it was going to be, he would have came from another direction. You know what I mean? And I think, we have to, as people, we have to look forward to the future and doing better things. We say Black history. I look at awareness of his history. We have to learn our history. And that's basically it. I definitely appreciate everybody for coming and me being invited as well. And if I can do anything to help anybody in the community and vice versa, I'm going to reach out. You can reach out to me as well. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Willie Owens, community activist, Jefferson Award winner, the man who, if there's trouble in the neighborhood, he's going to go out there and try to solve it. And one thing that theme is running through this discussion this evening is, despite the different experiences all of you have, there is a commitment to giving back, to making a difference and helping other people. Lending a hand, not a handout, but a hand up, as was mentioned earlier. And I think it's great to have this distinguished group of folks from the Twin Tiers here this evening. Wanted to mention, by the way, the last couple of years, I've been doing this a lot with Georgia Verdier. We've been having unity in the community rallies. And the idea is that there's more that brings people together than separates people. So unity in the community rallies. And there'll be more coming up about this, but on May 13th is a Saturday at Centerway Square in Corning. There'll be a unity in the community rally at Centerway Square in Corning. The NAACP is co-sponsoring that with me, and we're going to have the mayor of Corning, the mayor of Elmira, the sheriff of Steuben County, the sheriff of Chemung County, the president of Corning Community College, Georgia Verdier. Right now I'm still in the process, and George has been helping me, of recruiting people for this Unity in the Community Rally at Centerway Square in Corning. We've been having these events in Elmira, but why not have the events also in Corning? Because Unity in the Community is not just Elmira, it's the entire Twin Tiers. And I want to thank the NAACP and all the great folks that have been working with me to make these Unity in the Community rallies successful. Astratitis is an attorney, law and social policy analyst and expert. Earlier, someone mentioned they had a dual degree. Well, Astra Titus earned a dual degree, a JD, a law degree, along with a degree in social work from the University of Pennsylvania. If I'm getting this wrong, please correct me. Astra Titus, your achievements, your success, Astra.
Hi. Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Coleman. This has been just really amazing to hear all of my friends and my, my people out there hearing their stories. So first, I want to give a shout out to Crystal, Overbrook girl, Overbrook. We used to sneak into parties at Cheney, so yeah, I love a Philly girl. Anyway, so yes, I grew up in Philly, and I consider, when I was thinking about this, I don't think of my success in terms of my education or my career track. Yes, Dr. Coleman, you pointed out I have a, expensive education. I have been lucky enough to be very successful in my career and do really amazing and interesting things. But I think that my true success is finding my belonging. And that's why I do the work that I do, because I spent much of my life trying to figure out, where do I belong? I'm biracial. Am I white? Am I black? What do I say? Because and trying to understand how to see myself other than the way that I thought others were seeing me, the way that I was projecting that others were seeing me, which was not good enough, not fitting in, not just not worth anything. So I spent a lot of time battling that, in my childhood, in my angsty teens, in my 20s, and it wasn't until really my adult life that I started to come to understand that belonging wasn't outside of me, right? That belonging comes from inside of me, and that in order for me to find happiness, I needed to tap into that sense of a belonging, and that, to me, finding happiness was my success. And so through a lot of work, a lot of medications, a lot of therapy, a lot of different stuff, I started that journey on sort of, connecting to myself and finding my belonging. And in 2018, I bought the Curious George store at that time it was in Harvard Square in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And I closed it, planning for an expansion. My expansion, I was going to reopen the store in a historically Black and now very gentrifying neighborhood. And in sort of doing that planning and getting myself there, the neighborhoods surrounding this neighborhood, which were the 4 poorest neighborhoods in the city of Boston, right? They opened to me. And it was these neighborhoods that were supporting me in coming, and part of that was me going out and saying, I am here because of you and us. I'm not, it's the Curious George store. We get hundreds of thousands of visitors a year, but that doesn't matter because this store belongs to us. It belongs to you. And the opening and the show of love and support that I got from my community made me realize, oh yeah, I'm Black. Because this is where I get my strength. This is the community that supports me and builds me up. This is where I belong. And so my success, I always am a little bit wary when we have programs about Black success, Black people being successful, because oftentimes it can be seen as, oh, look at them, they're Black and they were still successful. So it's not, Black people can be successful. So there's nothing wrong with, there's no racism, there's no systemic, and I realized today that I am successful because I am Black, not despite the fact that I am Black. And it is because of the spirit and the heart and the belonging that my community has given to me, that's really my success. And that is completely what drives my success in my career and in my life. And so I am just so grateful. Although the road to getting to success was very difficult and painful, but now I know how to reach out and help others that are in that same place to be successful, to help others understand that they belong, right? And that they belong in this really just, I can't describe the vibrancy, the beauty, the soulfulness of this community. And that when you tap into that, you can't help but be a success. So that's my success story.
Thank you, Astria. I appreciate your sharing your life, your experiences with the entire community. I think what we're hearing tonight is important for the Black community, the white community, young people. We've heard a lot about determination, tenacity, the importance of education. Anita Lewis, I liked, it's never too late. It's never too late in life. There's always opportunities and possibilities. So don't say never's never. It is never too late. And that was an inspirational talk by Anita Lewis. So those comments she made. And the other thing too is the importance of community, gaining strength from community, but also giving back, kind of a symbiotic relationship. So far tonight, we've heard from Georgia Verdier, Elmira Corning NAACP President, Crystal Jubilee, Director of Nurse Education, Corning Community College, Jerome Emanuel, Director of Lending, Alternatives Federal Credit Union, a member of the New York State Regional Economic Development Council, Reverend Holly Strickland, pastor of the Webb Mills United Methodist Church, Dr. Richard Dozier, author, commentator, and a former Corning Community College vice president, and former regular on the Coleman and Company show on WETM television, where he did a great job. Anita Lewis, Chief Development Officer, Economic Opportunity Program, and a member of the Top Shelf band. Top Shelf is Top Shelf, and they do a great job. We heard just now from Astra Titus, attorney, law and social policy analyst and expert. We heard from Willie Owens. Now, the next person, by the way, remember what people have said, because I want to get a dialogue going shortly on this program. Jamal Malik, Jamal, I should say Malik, I apologize. Jamal Malik is chair of the Chemung County Democratic Committee. Jamal, welcome to the program on Black Success in America and the Twin Tiers. What say you? Welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you so much, Dr. Coleman, for having me here amongst such a distinguished panel of Black leaders in the Southern Tier. I'm going to start my story in 1852. And the reason why I'm going to go back to 1852 is because that's when my great-great-grandfather, John Muldoon, decided to leave where he was and get on the Underground Railroad and come up to Elmira. Once he got to Elmira, he stayed at the Park Church, and they hid him in a stable right there by Route 17, Reed Stable. And as the tradition has always been with enslaved Africans who have escaped and found freedom in the North, they took a free name, and his free name was Reed. Now he spelled it R-E-I-D. The stable owner's name was Reed, R-E-E-D. So he made a little distinction with that. Reason why I'm starting with that story is because I take a lot of inspiration from my great-great-grandfather, who had the nerve and the audacity to pull himself out of a situation that was oppressive, and decided to come up and to Elmira. He was supposed to go to Rochester and to Canada, but he decided to stay here because there was a lot of nice folk here. And one of the things that I found as I started digging into the history of the family, because there was a lot of history, especially here in Elmira, not just with John Muldoon or John Reed, but James B. Reed, who worked at the Second National Bank, which is now the Historical Society. My grandfather, Thomas James Reed, who was a sheriff's deputy and the turnkey of jail. My Uncle Tommy, who was the first African-American firefighter in the city of Elmira, and my dad, Wilbur Reed, who was first police officer, African-American police officer in the modern age in the city of Elmira. So I had a lot of shoulders that I'm standing on, and a lot of history that is documented. In fact, we had a meeting the other night with my brothers and sisters, Cheryl, Deborah, Anna, Gator, Randy, all of us were on, because we have these trunks that my grandfather had and the trunks that my grandmother had. And there's so much stuff in there, and we're trying to decide what to do with it. And I think that's one of the things we're going to do, is come up with a way to preserve that history. My grandmother was born on a reservation, the Oneida Reservation, up there near Schenectady. So when you look at a picture of my grandfather and my grandmother, you see them together, you know, it's very telling. When my dad passed away, before he passed away, I was visiting him in the hospital, and he said to me, I hear the drums of the Gambia River and the drums on the Mohawk drumming for me. And that was like a month before he passed away. I didn't know what he meant by that. But then when I looked at the picture of my grandmother, who was Oneida, and that's on the Mohawk River, and I looked at a picture of my grandfather, and I took a trip to the Gambia, and I was there, and I showed the picture of my grandfather to the host, one of my hosts. And I said, can you tell me who he is? He said, yeah. He said, he's Mandinka. I said, how do you know that? He said, I'm Mandinka. He's Mandinka. I know who my people are. I said, really? It was a shock. If any of you have ever traveled to Africa, if you should. If you haven't, you should. If you have been there, you understand exactly what I'm talking about. It is an experience that you will never forget, because the spirit of our people and our ancestors that are there is strong. It's you can feel it. And that feeling that I got when I visited there, went to Mombasa, went to the slave fort, one of the slave forts there, and it's the same feeling. Went to not just the Gambia, but to Zanzibar. They had slave forts there, and you can go visit them. When you go, you can feel the intensity of our ancestors. So what I'm saying is, please listen to your ancestors. Ask them for help. Ask them for the guidance. It's there. They will give it to you. When I was just a young person here in Elmira, went to Lago School, went to Ernie Davis Junior High School, went to EFA, graduated there. I had a lot of questions, and I had a lot of questions that folk couldn't answer. And ultimately, in my search for what I called the truth, okay, it led me to Islam. So this was one of the things that was like one of the turning points in my life, and that was 50 years ago, last October. And as a result of that, my entire demeanor, my entire thought process, my entire way that I handled and dealt with people changed. And one of the things that when you accept Islam and you're going through all of your lessons and your training, the first thing you learn is your word is your bond. You don't say something or do something that you're not going to follow through with. So keep your word. That's a very strong character trait. I heard one of the guests here say that they're a lifelong learner. I think that was you, Holly, right? Perhaps. Yes. Okay. One of the things I learned in Islam is that, seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. Always seek knowledge. It doesn't matter where you get it from. A little 5-year-old child taught me something, okay? So don't sleep on where the knowledge and the information comes from. If you don't learn something every day, then you're probably not doing something right. That's just my opinion, okay? Character is one of the things that, is a key and central, focus as far as Islam is concerned. And I heard somebody quote Martin Luther King, and I found a similar quote that I wanted to read, because that quote, focused primarily on character. It says, judge a man not by the color of his skin, but by the content of his character. And so my focus has always been, and as a result of Islam, has always been, to perfect your character. Prophet Muhammad came to perfect the character. Our father Abraham came, with Tawheed, which is the oneness, one God. Moses came with the law. And Isa ben Maryam, Jesus, son of Mary, came with love and charity and all those good traits. So all I'm saying now is that And what I just want to leave you with, because I know I don't have a whole lot of time, is that, you know, the best and most beloved servant of the Creator are the best of them in character. So please, you know, do your best every day to perfect and strengthen your character. Thank you so much, Dr. Coleman.
Jamal,
Thank
you so much for sharing your story. These stories, I think, are important for young people, important for everybody watching in the Twin Tiers, and I appreciate people being authentic, and so it means a lot to me, and thank you. This program, Black Success in America and the Twin Tiers. By the way, there was something that was said earlier. Astrid Titus mentioned this, and there's a lot of Black success, overcoming obstacles, hard work. But what I want this to be a celebration, an inspirational program about Black success and achieving, and I want young people listening to pick up that energy. What I don't want is somebody to say, well, you see, we don't have any racism. Blacks are successful, and therefore the racism is just something that's not real. It's a mirage. And I don't want this program to be used in that way. And I do think that people that are racist will grab things and interpret things in a way that supports their racism and their warped view of the world. So this program, Black Success in America and the Twin Tiers, with a panel of people in different ways, have been successful in their professional lives, their personal lives, and so on. At this point, I want to open it up for a discussion. By the way, a couple of white leaders will be chiming in about maybe 15, 20 minutes to talk about what they've learned from this panel. Jeff Murray, a veteran journalist and member of the USA Today Network, Gannett Newspapers. I would say that Jeff Murray is the Dean of Journalism in the Twin Tiers. And Mayor Dan Mandel is here, the Elmira mayor. But George Verdier, you've been listening to all of this. You started. You're the president of the local NAACP. You've been to Africa. We heard from Jamal Malik that it's important to go to Africa. You know, what's your reaction to what you've been hearing?
Well, Africa is a whole nother conversation because it is so interesting. So, but in terms of what I've been hearing is that life is a journey and there are different paths to success. And I think I'll go back to Jerome. I kind of just want to embellish on that a bit because everybody will not go to college and they can still be successful. So it's about being the best you can be, whatever journey you're on and whatever arena you're in. And I want young people to know that because so many times when we talk, education is important and it's special and it's a way up, but there are other ways to get there. It's just like diversity. It's a whole rainbow of things. And so I just want to make sure young people know that you don't necessarily have to go to college to be successful. You could be a plumber. I pay my plumber more than that college professor gets many times. So it's one of those things, but we're talking about, for many of us, you asked us to talk about our journey. And for many of us, education was the success for our personal journeys, but it doesn't negate the fact that other people can get to the promised land without going on the same journey we were on. And we talked about, you mentioned something about racism. You want people to know that it is real. Racism is real and it's an everyday occurrence. One of the things you hear me say a lot, I had to learn how to swim in shark-infested waters and not get devoured by the sharks. So you have to learn how to navigate through the system in spite of racism. I don't think it's ever going to go away. I hope it will get better, but it might not ever go away, but it does not negate the fact that you cannot make it somehow. You have to learn how to go over, go around, help me remove it. And so I'm all about change. And I believe that if we want change, we have to be change agents. Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Anybody wanted to respond to what Georgia just said in terms of her comments, change agents, racism, and so forth? Yeah, Dr. Dozier, go ahead.
You know, I do agree with her. Education is not for everyone. And there are other avenues to success. You know, and here I am, I'm a big advocate of education, but along my journey, I recognize that it was not for everyone. But there are other avenues to success to achieve whatever goal a person has set for themselves in life. You know, I do encourage young people to go to college and to seek out whatever area they want to be in. You know, whether it's a community college to get or a trade school. These are avenues that are very important. And success, the level of success, one must determine for themselves. You know, what does one consider success? You know, we were told, you know, the American dream is our success. You know, a house with a white picket fence, dogs, you know, Spot, Jane, and all that sort of stuff. And so we strove for those things. But it's, you know, to me, it's self-satisfaction. As I said, I got my doctorate degree for self-satisfaction, not for moving up or, you know, to be successful in higher education, but it was a personal goal. So whatever one sets as their own personal goal, as long as you are happy, you're satisfied, and you're not hurting anyone else or hurting yourself, then those, it does not have to be through, you know, we learn every day. Education does not stop, you know, because we read newspaper or whatever information we're receiving. So education never stops, even though you may not have that formal education.
You know, I'll say this, like I had a conversation with my 9-year-old earlier today, and she said, you know, Daddy, some of my friends think you're rich. I'm like, well, what does that mean? What's rich mean? So, well, they think you have a lot of money. So why do they think that? Why do they think I have a lot of money? And more importantly, why does having a lot of money equal rich? You know, back to Dr. Dozier was saying, like, the definition of being rich or poor, the definition of success and failure means a lot of things to a lot of people. Like, if your goal is I want to be the head custodian at McDonald's, and you achieve that goal, who are we to say that you are not successful? Right? I mean, if that's your goal, I can't tell you what success looks like. I can't say that my life and my path is what success looks like. I can say that this is what I'm choosing to do with my life. I'll let everybody else speak to if it's successful or not. But it has nothing to do with money. It has to do with who you are and what you want to do. What is your imprint? Like, you know, when you look at Black heroes, since we're talking about, you know, Black History Month, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was not rich. Malcolm X was not rich. Rosa Parks was not rich with money. But when we look at them and through a history lens, we say, these are our leaders. These are our heroes. Has nothing to do with money. Zero. You know, so if I'm here on this panel, it's because I've been willing to do something that other people haven't been willing to do, or I'm doing things that people on this panel are willing to do. But it has nothing to do with how much money do I have in my pocket. And I needed to drive that home and that message home to my daughters. Like, listen, like, stop. This isn't about, like, what do you have? This is about who are you? Who do you want to be? You know, like, I have daughters that I You know, my definition of success for my daughters is I want daughters like Miss Georgia. I want daughters like Miss Anita. I want daughters like Director Crystal. Like, I want my daughters to follow those models. Like, I want a daughter to be a lawyer like Dr. Astra. Like, this, it's not about the money. It's about where are we going to move this culture forward, and look at all the things that stopped us from getting in the way to being at a net even. So I'm somebody who's a business person, right? From a business lens, net even means that we start at the same line and then we go forward at the same time. We have to stop pretending that those two things are true. We did not start at net even. We are starting from behind, trying to catch up to net even, which is moving faster than what we can catch to, but we're still trying to push. And in some cases we're winning, in some cases we're losing. But that always has to be the goal. Like, and it's not a racial thing. It's not like I want to have more, you know, higher level of success of white people. My family is 50% white. I don't really care. I want to figure out what is it going to take for society to get past this and move to something different where it looks like we all have the same opportunity to do the same things. We are pushing forward, but also acknowledging the fact that, hey, we screwed up in history. Sorry about that. And then let's do something about it. Like, I'm in firm belief. Reparations are necessary. I'll say it to everybody on this panel. I'll say it to everybody in the community. It's crucial because Black people were robbed of generational wealth. Like, and if you can't accept that, we can't go forward with the conversation because it's real. Read any book you want to read, but it's very real.
Jerome, want to comment. One thing I think you emphasized was character. It's not about money. It's more about character. Jamal Malik was mentioning character and so forth. I wanted to ask you, in terms of reparations, and folks, please feel free to chime in. In terms of reparations, Jerome, in what form? Educational reparations, financial reparations? What type of reparations do you think are necessary to help right the wrong of racism in America?
Well, the first thing that you have to think about is reparations were actually given. They just weren't given to the slaves. They were given to the slave owners. Mm-hmm. We got to pay attention to that, right? Okay. So slave owners were paid for releasing their slaves, but slaves didn't receive anything, mm-hmm. right? So like, that's not even, me, that's history. But what I think that needs to happen is like, land was the most valuable piece to this whole puzzle, and land is what was taken from us. So when we had the Civil War and the North drove the Confederates out of the South into the Midwest, into the West, and African Americans took over those properties. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Coleman, you know this as well as I do, once Lincoln was shot and killed, like, reparations meant like, hey, how do we get these people back in their homes? This is what we have to do. Like, they want their house back, and we essentially, and I'll say it because I can, but we essentially gave traders to the nation back their property, mm-hmm. and did nothing for people that look like us. Mm-hmm. So we're fighting that and the generational wealth gap that goes with it. And then where are we now? Like, generationally, my mm-hmm. grandfather was a sharecropper, a runaway sharecropper at that, who came here, right? Like, so that's 2 generations back. Mm-hmm. So my mother's grind and my mother's work is what gave me what I have, but what I'm doing is going to give my daughters and my son what they have, and then on and on and on. But we're starting so far back in the race that trying to catch up to anything isn't even logical without without the United States government saying, hey, listen, we did something wrong, we need to fix it, and fix it.
Right. There's a tendency also, I think, Jerome, for white people, many white people, they turn their head start into an achievement. Well, they started way ahead. And they got to remember, white folks have to remember that a head start over other folks in this society. And, it's important to open the doors of opportunity for all races and all folks and so on. Comment, Dr.
Sorry, I wanted to sort of comment on that aspect of it. And I think I've said this on, I've used this analogy on the panel before, maybe not, but the analogy that I like to use is that of a friends playing a Monopoly game, right? And that you all are meeting for your weekly game night, and you all love Monopoly, and you happen to be running late. And so you call ahead and you say, hey, I'm going to be there in about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, something, but you guys go ahead and start without me. And so all your friends do, you get there and you're sitting around the game, and they're like, okay, here you go. Here's your, I don't know how much it is, $500 or whatever, okay, let's join the game. And you look at the board and they have hotels, houses, Park Avenues, all, whatever the blue ones that are all like expensive, like everything's bought, right? And all you can get is like Marvin Gardens or like the brown ones, whatever they are, and the rent's like $10 a month, right? So that's all you have left. And you're like, well, I can't, how can I possibly compete with your success? And everyone says, oh, well, we did it. We had the same amount that you did. We started with that same amount. We worked and we did it. And we got to this point of success. So you can too.
Yeah, I would say, I would say, Dr. King eloquently put it that America gave Black Americans a blank check. And when we went to cash it, it was labeled insufficient funds. I say in today's time, America has given us that check. But this time when we went to cash it, it was account closed. America has not kept its promise to the Black people, the Black Americans. We were never treated as Americans. I have to go back to my grandfather was 75 years old when my mother was born. And that was in 1925. He was born in 1850. So my grandfather may have been a slave. And so I'm of one of that generation that's closer to slavery. And this was in Valdosta, Georgia area. And so America has 40 acres and a mule. Never got that 40 acres and a mule. And so, we can look at the beach there in California, and which was really stolen from the Blacks. But now that they've received it back, but that was generational wealth for them. And look at what they've now sold it back to the city, and the millions of dollars that they received for it. We were never able, Jerome's right, we were never able to build generational wealth. And even now, we may be getting into it. But like in that Monopoly game, everybody else is owning the board, the big pieces on the board, and we cannot catch up. I think it was President Johnson that mentioned that, when we got into the race, we had a ball and chain on our foot holding us back. And so America has never kept its promise to Black Americans. At World War II, they paid reparations to the Japanese. They've given monies to other countries, so forth, so on. We can even look at the devastation of Haiti. America had a big part in that. So with Black nations, America has been denying. And so we're at a, no, I don't know what, yes, do we deserve reparations? Yes, in many ways. You know, in terms of what's happening with the police, so forth, so on, that, you know, that code of blue. There's so many issues today that must be addressed.
Dr. Dozier, thanks. This has been a wonderful discussion talking about Black success in America in the Twin Tiers, but also talking about racism and obstacles and coming from behind, and white folks having a head start. I use the phrase and turning that into an achievement. I have two white leaders here, and I want to get their comments on what they've heard this evening. Have they learned anything from this discussion on Black success in America in the Twin Tiers? And I'd like to right now turn to the mayor of Elmira, Dan Mandel. Mayor Mandel, what say you?
Well, good evening, Dr. Coleman. And first of all, great panel tonight. All these are true leaders of our community, and I listened intently to what they had to say. Just basically summarizing everything up, we've made some gains, but we still have work to do. We all hope at some point racism goes away. You know, we've done better, but we can do better. I learned a lot about why they're called for reparations and then why they're looking for reparations. And they bring up some valid arguments. There's a lot that I learned, so.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. By the way, I appreciate your coming on the program and giving a viewpoint as a leader in the white community. Another leader I have here is, I call him the Dean of Journalism in the Twin Tiers, Jeff Murray, Star Gazette, USA Today Network, Gannett newspapers. Jeff Murray, listening tonight, so, you know, what have you learned?
Well, let me point out that as a journalist for more than 4 decades, part of my job is trying to learn what makes people tick. And obviously, I can't understand what the full experiences of people in the Black community any more than I can understand people in the Native American community or people from, you know, or women or any more than they can understand my full experience. But it's something I've always strived for, is to have an opportunity to talk to people and learn as much as I can about their experience. I think that dialogue is critical, which is why I think a program like this is so important. You know, I can't say honestly that I've been directly affected by racism, but I've known people who were racist, who were openly racist, and you know, I found their attitudes frankly shocking, offensive. Sometimes I tried to call them out on it, maybe not very successfully, but nevertheless, you know, I know it's out there. One thing that has impressed me about the panel of folks we've had here tonight is that, you know, they've all said, you know, there have been challenges. They've encountered racism. They've had obstacles, and yet they've said, you know, this is still, you know, flaws and all. This is still the land of opportunity. I'm going to make it happen, obstacles, racism or not. And I find that really refreshing, and I really applaud them for, you know, working to overcome those obstacles. And like Dan Mandel said, we've got a long way to go. I think it's something that we all, you know, we can discuss reparations, we can discuss other things, but I think the important thing is that we sit and we do discuss, and we do it. We try and understand each other. We try and do it in a respectful way, not start pointing fingers and blaming our problems on racism or the Democrats or the Republicans or it's this or that. To say, you know, we can each take our responsibility for our own attitudes and our own actions, and understand how those actions affect everybody else. And you know, I've learned some things here tonight, and I think it's an opportunity, really. You know, one thing I've learned, like I said, over the years, is it's important to keep that dialogue open, not just talk, but listen. You know, I wouldn't be a good journalist if I didn't listen and try to understand what people were telling me. I think that's what we all need to do. And I think if we do that, then we can meet some of these goals that are still haven't been attained. And still, they might seem unattainable, but as other people have said, we have to keep pushing and trying to reach them.
Jeff Murray, you make a good point that you got to listen. I think what's happening now in America more and more, people aren't listening to one another. They're talking past one another. They're only listening to the people that agree with them on Fox News or other media outlets, Newsmax, for example. And so people aren't really listening in America. There's a lot of distrust. There needs to be I think, a program on that. American politics, is American politics having a nervous breakdown? Stay tuned. The folks here tonight, all of you, we have about 4 minutes left. A quick final comment from anyone, anybody.
Let me just jump in real quick and pick up on that point you made. One of the things, as a journalist, obviously the First Amendment is important to me. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press. One of the things I find most alarming is people out there wanting to, and this goes on, all sides of the political aisle, people wanting to stifle or shut down speech or thought that they don't agree with. I hear things all the time from people that I don't agree with at all, but I don't say, I think that person should be shut up. I said, let them talk. The whole point of the First Amendment and what the founding fathers had in mind is that the free exchange of ideas is important. Whether you agree with those ideas or not, the fact, get them out there. If you don't agree with them, challenge them, bring your own points up, debate, whatever, but don't shut them down. So no matter where people are on the spectrum, like we are here tonight, just give them that opportunity to get their ideas out there. They're either going to stand or fall on their own merits.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Jeff. I think we should also just mention that free speech is not absolute. You can't shout fire into a crowded theater, as a Supreme Court justice wrote in a case called Sheikh versus the U.S. You can't libel somebody. So there are limits to free speech. And the other thing about free speech is free speech, when you think about it, I can go out of my house right now, it's dark, and I can start shouting outside of my home so the whole neighborhood can hear me. I guess you could call that free speech. But to really have speech, oftentimes it takes a lot of money to buy time on radio and TV and so forth. So free speech is not free. Speech is not free in America. And I think we just got to realize that if you have deep pockets, you have a lot of free speech in America. And again, this is a generalization, but again, I can go out and shout like crazy and be a madman after this in my neighborhood. That's free speech, but it's not going to have the same impact if I had deep pockets and was spending lots of money to buy airtime and so forth. Anybody else? Final.
Dr. Coleman, I would say the dangerous person is DeSantis, but more dangerous are those who are not speaking out against him, who do not agree with him, but they're remaining silent. So the governor of Florida, his speech, it's what he's doing in terms of the AP course, so forth, so on. He's dangerous. And those who are not speaking out against him or speaking up are just as compliant.
Okay.
A level playing field is what everyone's looking for right now.
By the way, a couple of people want to speak, so I am unilaterally extending the time of this for a few minutes, so some people can get some final word in. Georgia Verdier.
I was just going to say, I appreciate the panel. It has been a learning experience for me. They have shared diverse journeys. So it's not about where you began. It's about where you land, where you are, and what are you doing where you are to make a difference. I really appreciate that. Just because we are all African Americans, it doesn't mean we've had all the same experience. We've still had different journeys. And people need to realize that we're just as diverse as the nature. So I appreciate what I've heard tonight, and may God bless all of the people who've been on here, and I hope they just keep on doing what they're doing.
Yeah, Georgia, I think wait, there's a lot of diversity in the Black community, there's diversity in the white community, and also the Hispanic community.
Yes.
Often people look at communities in a very narrow way when there's lots of diversity. And if you look in a linear way at different groups, I think that's an error in logic. You are looking at things in a way that is flawed. Final comment from anybody? By the way, I enjoy
playing field.
Oh, go ahead. Somebody wants final comment?
A level playing field is what I'm saying, is what everyone's looking for.
Okay.
If the playing field is level, then we can all subscribe to the James Brown School of Economics. And that is, I don't want nobody to give me nothing.
Okay.
Open up the door, I'll get it myself.
Jamal Malik, thank you so much. It's the first time you've been on Coleman and Company and Political Pundit Night. I want to thank everybody for participating, and I hope more people watch this. By the way, this is archived. People are watching this live on mytwintears.com, but it's archived, and people can, watch it anytime, any place, for better or for worse. This has been a great panel. I really appreciate this. Next Political Pundit Night is March 23rd. It's a Thursday night. I want everybody to have a great evening. Be safe, and thank you so much for participating. Take care now. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.